You've picked the best session. Congratulations. Partially because we have a guest at PCPC who's new and happened to be here this weekend, and we've been able to pull him in to help us with this. Yeah, thanks. Stephen Crotts, I didn't even know who he was till last fall. We got put on a panel together, which was wonderful. And then I looked at my Facebook feed and realized he was friends with my mom. So I'm like, okay. So he lives in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is my hometown, actually. So he had a lot of connections. He went to Winthrop there in town and has done some church planting stuff with the denomination that my parents are in, so they know him. Anyway, he's Illustrator, has done work, obviously, with Andrew Peterson and a lot of other luminaries along the way. He has graciously come and extended his time. He was in town, Andrew was in town, and then we kind of pulled him together. They were in town. He was in town for a different event, so we asked him to kind of stay over. Anyhow, I won't belabor the point, but hopefully you guys can get a chance to see some of his prints in action a little bit later on, so do take advantage of that if you get a chance. But help me welcome Stephen Crotts.
And where is that now?
Let me check. I will get back up. Maybe I'm seeing timers.
Otherwise... Well, hey everybody. I'm glad to be here in Texas. I love Texas. I think it's wonderful. And I'm going to do some show and tell with you today. I was looking at the theme of the overall weekend here and, all these touch points on suffering, which I don't feel like I have faced a ton of suffering in my personal journey yet. But I have journeyed alongside people who have in ministry and other, friendships and relationships. And so I thought maybe what I could do is think connections with my artistic practice that help me to see my neighbor well. So.
I think you just shut it down.
Oh, okay. So it's going to come back?
It's about.
Yeah. So I'm in South Carolina. I work as a freelance illustrator. I went to college for illustration, but then had to kind of work a day job for many years to support. There we go. Babies and family, and I've just in the last couple years been doing full-time freelance work. So what I'll do is just take you through a handful of images, and y'all please feel free to, if you really need to ask a question along the way for clarification, cool, and then we'll talk at the end too. But these, I'll just walk through a few things that I've worked on. This is, Andrew Peterson's, a few of his album covers and book covers I've worked on. These are various other book covers. These are all from the last year or so. Getting to do The Hiding Place from Corrie ten Boom was a huge privilege. I'm still over the moon about that one. But yeah, it's been really cool to be able to go from working for the county, doing graphic design in a basement, to getting to, illustrate and help package great works of literature and music. These are coming out next year, a series of Gothic classics. I got a Hutchmoot pal here. April's in the room. And this is a gathering in Nashville. It's part of the Rabbit Room community that Andrew and his friends have started. Children's books, I've done a couple of those. This is from Wolfbane Books, which is totally great a great publisher for children's books. Aiden Peterson, Andrew's son, has just illustrated a trilogy with these folks that lavishly, he's the best Bible illustrator out there right now. And I wish I want to be one day, but he's. Oh, cool.
And then the filbert crab one.
Oh, nice.
And so.
Yeah. Cool. So that's not it, but what's going on there? My images are going away. We can just like huddle around the sketchbook if this. No, I've got a lot to show. Okay. Okay, bursts of images. All right. Well, in the meantime, any questions so far? Yeah.
I'm fascinated by woodcut. Can you kind of give us a little idea of
Totally.
how it's done? It's almost like a negative, I assume.
Yes, it is, and that's what was coming up next. So, but what he's talking about is I work. A lot of my work is based in lino cut or woodcut printmaking. So, relief printmaking is the broad term of it, but you are carving into the surface of a block of wood or linoleum. You're carving away the light. So, basically, if you rolled ink onto this surface uncarved, it's just a black block. So you get the black part for free. But the work is to find the light. And so as you're working on things like this, I think that, for me at least, it's been a good meditation on, seeing things by the light source. And we come to know the truth of things by light. So anyway, but this is one. I'll pull prints later on from this. It's C.S. Lewis and Tolkien in this back room of the Bird and Baby pub in Oxford where they met with the other Inklings to kind of critique and encourage each other. And this back room was called the Rabbit Room, which is what Andrew and his brother and those folks in Nashville named their community after. So this kind of collaboration and iron sharpening iron thing has been something that I look back to their story and what they pulled out of each other in my own arts community locally. All right, we're back. Disregard everything I just said. No. This is my studio at home. So it's a little shop. And let's see. Ooh, I've got a pointer. So there's woods right behind it. And so back here I've got my snake hook. And yeah, it's South Carolina, Rock Hill, South Carolina. And this is Annette. She goes with me on trips into the woods. And my wife, the first time I said, I'm taking Annette with me. Raised an eyebrow, but yeah, I catch. I'm into dragonflies and beetles, so that's what I use that for. Flying beetles, called tiger beetles. Let's see. There's a lot of toys. I'll revisit the toys later. This is my relief printmaking press and a little etching press, so the ink goes on and that goes through the pressure, but. This is, if you can see, this is the British poet, priest, rock musician, Malcolm Guite, who I think y'all are familiar with, right? Has he? He's been here. Lucky. I haven't met him in person. Yeah?
Do you prefer softwood or hardwood? What kind of wood do you?
Ooh, good question.
I'm thinking of the imperfections within the grain and how you're carefully
Sure.
doing this and then suddenly
Yeah. Yeah, so this
something that might spoil the whole picture.
linoleum, like this is a piece of linoleum mounted to wood. It is all around the easiest to deal with, and linoleum, it's, yeah, It's the easiest to deal with, and it retains the most detail. Wood, like you're saying, it allows for a lot of imperfections, and you might shard off in an unexpected way. But I have used like birch plywood to do this kind of thing. Now, wood engraving is on the end grain of very dense woods like boxwood and lemonwood, and that requires pointed burins and graving tools. So this is a little bit different. Uh-oh. So, yeah. Yes. Yeah, so usually I'll get my drawing situated. I'll do sketches in my sketchbook. This is my little sketchbook. And so I'll kind of figure out the composition and then draw it to the size of the block. And then a quick way to do it is to rub, trace it with tracing paper and turn it upside down on the surface and then draw on the back, and it transfers the graphite. And then you've got your image on the block. And
How do you know what you're going to draw? How are you inspired?
yeah. How am I inspired? Looking around in the world at dragonflies. That's it. Usually I've got a specific idea of something in mind, a particular kind of picture or something, and then I'll go do research, whether that's sometimes it's posing a model, sometimes it's taking a picture of a tree. It's all in the slideshow. I've got a whole process sequence. Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody starts out as an artist, right? I mean, it's just some of us stop. Everybody starts drawing, though. So I guess I was encouraged to keep doing it. Not always encouraged. I remember one time in kindergarten, the teacher slapped me on the hand for, with a ruler, because I was drawing on the edge of my math pages. But I guess I had enough other people and maybe enough rebellious spirit to keep doing it. But I studied illustration. Yeah. I started with graphic design, and there were a couple of professors that I wanted to work with more who were illustration and drawing focused. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna switch my major so I can work with them. What I've ended up doing is essentially graphic design for the most part. I mean, these album covers and book covers are totally design projects, but I'm drawing them, Let's see, did we skip something? Okay. These are my printmaking tools. These are little gouges that I use to carve into the surface, and these are brayers that we roll out ink on. And these are commentaries on Hebrews and things like that. Every studio needs a little model of the Second Temple. So, or at least mine does. This is a wood engraving. You were talking about the different materials. This is that really dense. And you can see that pointed tool is a little different from the V-shaped gouges that I'm normally using. But contrast is the mother of clarity. So this is really important when we get to doing printmaking. I have students, when I do workshops, try to draw with chalk on black paper that helps them to do that job of drawing the light out of the dark. And it really is a negative, reverse way of thinking. Here's this student is tracing her drawing that she's going to then transfer to the block. Once you get it transferred, I usually put what I want it to remain in black, and then I cover the whole block in another color so that when I carve, I can see, what I'm removing. So you've got three sort of colors. And there it goes again. Yeah. So,
Dude, what was the quote
Yeah.
I was getting this contrast is
Mother of clarity. Contrast, yeah.
Will you show us your sketchbook again?
Yeah, yeah. That's the main piece that I've got to show you. I've got a lot of scans, but yeah, this is my little sketchbook. So,
Colors is that color
in my sketchbooks, I'm using usually these little micron pens. That's the most common thing that I'm using. And then I've got a tiny little watercolor set. It's about this big. And I've got a little gouache set that I always carry in my little book bag. So, yeah, that's what the color is watercolor and gouache. So I can it's fun to be able to do paintings, you know. I have an oil painting rig that packs up into a backpacking size backpack. But it's a lot to pull out.
with an easel and everything.
You know, and you're on the beach and there's sand blowing into the oil paint. And but when I found gouache, it was like, ooh, I can do the same kinds of layering. It's not quite, and it has a flat sheen to it. Oil paint is just the juiciest and the best, but gouache will do in a pinch. And what's that?
Dry.
And dry immediately. And you can keep it in a book, which is fun.
Do you have an inspiration for woodcut artists?
I do. Yeah. You know, a lot of the artists that I love, I didn't know their names for a long time because illustrators, especially in the 18th and 19th centuries, and book cover designers were unnamed, but they're coming to light now. One of my favorite book cover designers is from the turn of the century, and she was in New England. Her name was Margaret Armstrong, and people started seeing an MA on certain, late Victorian book covers, and now a big collection has been put together of her works, and she's getting the recognition that she's due. Okay, so after we've got the block carved, roll ink onto it, and you can do this two ways. Today we'll use a wooden spoon. This is Steve Prince. He's a great printmaker. Speaking of inspiration, he's in Virginia. And then this is Ned Bustard. And I mean, you can see a lot of what you need to know about Ned just from that picture. But, he and I have given each other permission to give each other signatures because people, we get confused somehow, but I can deal with it. I love Ned. This is my daughter, so she's going to put hers through the press. And yeah. So two ways, you just need to apply pressure to lift the ink off the page. And then you've got the reverse image. So if you've got words, you'll have to carve them backwards. But this is for a Bible study coming out from Jen Wilkin on Sermon on the Mount. And here's another. This author, Lori Ferguson Wilbert, saw this piece and wanted it included in her book cover. So we kind of redesigned and put, the book is about touch, so we added fingerprint sort of texture. So this is a mix then of the handmade and digital stuff too. Here's another example of the printmaking going to, the cover of something. So, all right. So that's a little bit of my work, and then I'll get into backing up about where to find inspiration. Rich said, there's so much beauty around us for just two eyes to see, but everywhere I go, I'm looking. And shouldn't we be doing that? Okay. We don't know. Yeah.
Technical question.
Sure. So when you have multiple colors on a print, you've got to make blocks that are the same dimensions, but every color has to have a different block. So, and then they've got to align precisely. So usually you'd carve one and make a print, and then you could, a couple different ways, you could either print that block onto another block so that you get some guidelines, or trace and get, it's a complicated scenario and not one that I do if I can help it. So when you're seeing multiple colors, you're seeing a digital drawing. Which I do a lot of my work on this. I'm just drawing in Photoshop on the iPad. So
That's the case with the Forgotten King.
the Forgotten King is totally digital. Yeah. But I mean, it's kind of a misnomer. Like, it sounds like you're pressing a button to get a drawing, which, that's a whole other panel discussion. There are buttons now, and we should avoid them and destroy them. But we won't get into AI. But no. So digital drawing is still drawing, though. It's the artist's hand making every mark.
Your stroke is still the same.
Exactly.
It's still the same whether you carved it or drawn it.
Exactly. Yeah. Anything else in the moment? Yeah.
So have you always done like the book covers since graduated, or what kind of work have you done?
Yeah. No. So for many years after I graduated college, I was doing graphic design for a local museum, and occasionally got to draw for that. But my work through those years was, my personal work was painting, various types of drawing, sometimes printmaking, but it was really varied and didn't have much of an audience. Occasionally I would get to do like an RUF poster, or somebody would let me do a logo for the restaurant, stuff like that. And then a few years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I started to get musicians wanting me to do T-shirts or album covers, and it'd be somebody local doing their EP, and then somebody regional saw it, and so on. And finally, Jeremy Casella is a hymn writer, singer-songwriter in Nashville, and he had me do a T-shirt, and good old Andrew Peterson saw that and said, "Who's your T-shirt guy?" And so that was, once Andrew invited me to do something, which, by the way, he was my creative hero, and I did not know him, and he kind of reached out to me out of the blue. And that was a incredibly life-changing, it started a domino effect of meeting all these other people who have enriched my life and work. So going back to Rich's quote about everywhere I go, I'm looking. Even when I was languishing in the basement of my old job, I would go out into and that job wasn't that bad, but I would go out in the woods and try to find something every day that I didn't know the name of and look it up. And so that was a good habit of looking at things. I love reptiles and amphibians. I know some of y'all will squirm at this, but I love the diversity of color in this, and all these things that have been made. And then these are some beautiful little creatures. And I just love that, yeah. Oh, sure. Let's see. We got robin's eggs. This is, swallowtail. This is rosy wolf snail, carnivorous snail. They eat other snails. Saddleback caterpillar, Lucanus elephas, the elephant stag beetle, Luna moth. I forget what species of sunfish this is, but this is a 6-spotted tiger beetle, and down here is my favorite tiger beetle, the beach tiger beetle. Now these things, when they fly, they they're less than a centimeter long, and they're on the beach. And if you get within about 7 feet of them, they pick up and fly about 7 feet. And so you can imagine when I'm with my girl Annette chasing these things, it looks like you're chasing a ghost on the beach. And even when you pick it up, it looks like you're just being a mime. Because if people aren't right there at you, you just look like a crazy person. Which, yeah, you see the line work on that thing? I mean, like, seriously? I love that. I love the design. And so there's inspiration all the time in nature. Is there any way this can be smaller? So I'll zoom through a few other things that are just examples of things that I've seen that go into the work. So this is the angel oak in South Carolina, and then it found its way into the sower. It looked like a Garden of Eden tree to me. So this is the book, The Sower, that Scott James wrote. It's a beautiful kind of poetic. I think it's better for adults than kids, but it's a fun one just to reflect on the story of the gospel. One day, I observed my neighbor's hands when he came over at beer 30, and I said, "Give me your hands," and he said, "Don't touch my hands, man." And I grabbed him anyway, and I put a bowl under his hands and filled him up with water, and he was really freaked out at that point. But I took some pictures, and then he was really pleased when he found out that he got to be the hands of God. So he was flattered. When I was working on the sower, I found this little seed that was sprouted on a field trip with my kids. Have y'all ever seen those corn pits? It's like a pit of deer corn that kids swim around in. Well, there was one that was sprouted, so that got to go in. And for Andrew's book, The God of the Garden, we worked in, the art director didn't really know what they wanted, but I had seen Andrew's garden in this arch that he made, so that went in. And then it was pawpaw season, and the zebra swallowtails pollinate those. And I love that striated black and white contrasty design, and it's the Tennessee state butterfly where he lives. So that got in. And then I drew a different bird, goldfinch or something, and Andrew asked me to put it, to change it to a wren. And then in the book he said, he quoted Rich Mullins, one of his songs where he mentions a wren. So he just wanted to make me cry. But I think that's his goal with all the time, and I'm just getting tired of it. I was working on Helena Sorensen's novel, The Door on Half-Bald Hill, and I went through and it was underlining things that I thought would make good images, and she talks about carrying the right question on our back like a snail carries its shell. And then that day on my walk, I saw this snail, so it got in the book. This little flower I noticed one spring, Jack in the Pulpit. It's the only one in the woods that I could ever find, but I marked the date, and every year for 10 years I would look for it at that time, and it just felt like such a gift, like somebody coming home for Christmas, like somebody you don't get to see often. But it was this rich gift. If you're looking, there are things out there that might just be for your enjoyment. And it's a Jack in the Pulpit. So I memorialized it in a print.
And then how did you cut that out? Was that in the seat on the right?
This is a flexible rubber-like material that makes good stamps. It's good with kids, older kids if you want to try printmaking. This little mourning dove that I saw on the playground made it into the Song of Solomon for this Abide Bible project that I got to do, illustrating. I had to come up with 66 drawings, one for each book of the Bible. And so Andrew's Behold the Lamb cover that we saw earlier when I worked on that, I mean, first of all, that album transformed my mindset about the biblical narrative when I was in college. My buddy gave it to me, and I sat in my car, the only CD player I had, and listened to the whole thing back when it first came out in the early 2000s. And it was the first time that I ever understood the Bible to all be leading to Jesus. So it just was a revolution in my thinking. And then to get to come and do artwork for it was a huge deal. So I spent a lot of time and was cramming a lot of detail in. And my wife came through one day and she's like, what are you doing? Like, you're spending more time than you normally do. And I said, well, I'm applying to illustrate the Bible. And she's like, who are you applying with? And I said, I don't know. And when he debuted the updated version at the Ryman that year, there was an art director in the crowd, and she saw that work and called me the next morning and said, hey, would you like to illustrate the Bible? So it was the one time in my marriage where I got to say, I told you so. So at least I got one. But these are some of those. And there's a couple more. The reference for this one, for Nahum, with Nineveh being destroyed, was provided by ISIS because they destroyed a lot of Nineveh recently. So I'm going to try to get into the meat real quick. We cannot create observers by saying observe, but by giving them the power and the means for this observation. These means are procured through the education of the senses. For me, that's primarily in my sketchbook. These are some of my sketchbooks from through the years. My buddy took a picture of me in the subway drawing people, and the subway really is the most romantic place to draw. But these are my friends back at this is the museum where I worked. See, it really wasn't that bad. But we go and bring our paints and drawing and draw stuff there. This is a every other week drawing group. We have friends and neighbors that come and model, and we all draw. We've been doing this since we graduated college as just we missed having drawing classes, so we just started a group. This is a student over this last summer. That's on the Temple Mount. If I've ever made any valuable discoveries, it has been owing more to patient observation than to any other reason. So the more that we look and pay attention, the more we're going to discover. These are some little oil paintings I was telling you earlier about my little rig that I take out and do. These are like 6 by 6 inches. So they're just tiny little things. And these two are in Texas. The one up there and the one here. I love this driveway. I just thought it was some abandoned road, and I parked my car down in Tawakana, and this person has landed on. I think I about got shot, but they didn't know what I was doing. But after they saw it, they were just kind of puzzled. They were like, "Well, okay. Well, you do need to leave, but okay." Yeah, they stopped being mad. They didn't know what to do with it. But this is more sketchbook stuff. That's down in the Keys. This is in Bethlehem. This is a piece of graffiti by Banksy, the UK artist. Instead of a Molotov cocktail, it's throwing a bouquet of flowers. And this is overlooking the hill that is said to be the area where the heavenly host issued peace to the shepherds. This is also sunny Bethlehem. It is a sad place. This is my friend and her home. Some random sketches. So I would say that out of all these things that I've drawn, observationally, the thing that has stuck out to me the most through the years is people. Getting to draw people has changed the way that I engage with the world. Some people are angry. Some are serene. Some really want to get out of this meeting. This guy just looked like he wanted to go into a cave. This is my coworker, Mark. This is what I would do during staff meetings. But he seems epic. He's not particularly epic, but he's a great guy. Old people are the easiest to draw because they stay still. So out of all the likenesses, like I know in all my sketchbooks, this looks more like the real thing than anything else I've drawn, and this too, because these guys just don't move. And old men are easy too because they've got a lot of lines in their face that you can sort of like connect the dots. So it's easier. There's some more folks and critters. Staff meetings again, and I think this was a Presbyterian meeting. Let's see. That was staff, arts group, arts council, Presbyterian. These are concerts. These folks are easy to draw too. Sometimes musicians usually they'll come back to the same position, even if they're moving around. They'll kind of eventually keep doing the same thing, and you kind of have to take an average. There's our pal, Andrew. That's the closest I've ever gotten to actually getting a likeness, and it's still not that great. Thomas will be playing here tonight, and that's Byron House, a bass player, and Sandra McCracken, one of our great hymn writers. That's Michael Card. Some of y'all know him. There's another little Andrew, Rhiannon Giddens, and the organist from my home church. Okay, so a few years ago, I did a show of sketchbook stuff that I scanned, and I put this together with all these faces, and it was like putting together a puzzle that you didn't have the box for, because how do you know how they fit together? But after I got this framed up and looked at it for a while, I instead of going to bed, I took it in the house and I just gazed at it for probably 2 hours, and I went through and was remembering each of these people, and I was overwhelmed with the idea that so many of my days and so many of the people that I encounter, I never remember, and if I hadn't drawn these folks, I wouldn't have their memory. But everyone, God has paraded in front of me to behold something about Himself, and as much as so many days just pass and I'm thinking, whatever, this is a boring day. How can any day be boring when we're surrounded by little image bearers of the Creator? So anyway, this one got me thinking a lot about the beauty of my neighbors. And it reminded me of something. Having all these little faces, it gave me a particular kind of delight that reminded me of, my toy collection. So I've always loved little things. And I mean, again, it's like with drawing. We all start drawing. I think we all enjoy toys when we're little. We let ourselves enjoy these tiny things, these little image bearers. And I mean, I'm still trying to think through what it is that makes me love miniature stuff so much. This is in my studio, the dinosaur shrine. I've also got a Star Wars wall. various on another one with Indiana Jones and like Jesus and John Deere tractor and other things that give me delight. But this is a nativity set that I've been collecting since I was a little kid. So again, it's the same thing. It's like, it's just a little world that you can move things around and use your imagination. And at some point it occurs to me that it's like, it's a little bit like playing God, you know, and you wonder, like, is that bad to want to have control over a little domain? But I think God invites us to delight in a similar way that He does. So when I think of all of these faces that I've encountered, it makes me think of, like, in the garden, God paraded the animals in front of the man, and He gave them the task, you know, of naming them. So we get this practice of observation that turns into some combination of taxonomy and poetry, and God, like a proud mom putting a kid's drawing on the fridge, lets the names stand. I mean, and He honors Adam's creative bursts. The Father seems to delight in Adam's delight of what He's made. And surely He wants us to delight in each other. And so that has been what's happened with me. Is like I'm learning to observe more closely, think about what's going on in my neighbor's life, and see them in a similar way that the little collection of figurines invites us to imagine and play and think of adventures and things. When we will look at each other with something like the imagination that the Father is gracious to look at us with. And I think He invites us to consider the potentiality in our neighbor and want to draw it out. You know, He wants us to be helping each other along. These are some more faces. There's another Texan, Country Willie Edwards. But Buechner says this: if we're to love our neighbors, before we do anything else, we must see our neighbors with our imagination as well as our eyes. That is to say, like artists, we must see not just their faces, but the life behind and within their faces. Here it is love that is the frame we see them in. So, that draws it together for me in terms of wanting to look on my neighbor and companion to the grave, as Dickens says, with imagination. Couple more faces. This is Frederick Douglass and young Harriet Tubman. This is coming out in a book from Chalia Newbell. This was for Michael Twitty. These are some of his ancestors. He's got a book tracing his family history. So this, you're talking about inspiration. So sometimes in my illustration projects, I'm taking things that I've observed in life and then looking to historical references and things. And I've got an idea in mind. You were talking about how do I come to the blank page? I might have an idea, and then I want to find a few things to help round out the feel. So I love the feel of this mother and child image and the pose of this. And I was thinking of Mary in the flight to Egypt. And so I started, you can see the pose from this woman comes in. I wanted to have her nursing baby Jesus, just to emphasize the vulnerable state that he put himself in on our behalf. And then Michael Carr gave me this book of mummy portraits from Roman Egypt from the 1st century. So it's a great visual record of what people looked like in the region. And there was, in Alexandria, Egypt, a big Jewish population. So it's really possible that Mary and Joseph went there when they fled Herod. So here's Mary and Jesus in Alexandria. I'm just imagining them there. This is the Pharos Lighthouse, one of the wonders of the ancient world. In this setting, though, I wanted to get across this feeling of a woman who's beleaguered by her situation, but also full of confidence and faith and determination and bravery because of, when we read her epic poem, hymn, we can see how much she trusts the Lord. But I'll put a few more things in here. So there's a Roman temple, but in this boat we see the cross coming up above and replacing the darkness of paganism that had its grip on the world at the time. So anyway,
Stephen, where
yeah.
can we find that piece?
This is just a drawing that I did. I draw Jesus and Mary every Christmas Eve. Well,
So it's unpublished.
it's unpublished, yeah. But that's my little habit. When we're watching Christmas movies and stuff, I'll make a drawing every year of those two. So, Anne Lamott, when she's talking about looking at the world around us, she's got a whole chapter on this that's great. I almost just read the whole thing and left it at that. But she said, when what we see catches us off guard, and when we write it or draw it as realistically and openly as possible, it offers hope. Terry Teachout said, beauty is a byproduct of attempting to see or hear what is. So God has shot the world through with meaning and beauty, and we really just need only to attempt to name it, to observe it, draw it out, name it, hold it up to the light. He wants us to delight in the things and the places and the people that He's made. And not that one. Well, anyway, the thing that I wanted to say is from, let me pull this up. I just want to close on this one thought from Marilyn Robinson, the novelist. She says, "There's more beauty than our eyes can bear. Precious things have been put into our hands, and to do nothing to honor them is to do great harm." So we've got a duty to be delighted with the things and people that God's made. So we can chat to keep this going. Yeah.
You mentioned, I love what you said about how everyone is born an artist and some people just stop. What was your home like when you were young? How was the habit of observation cultivated in your life when you were a child?
My parents both were always trying out creative things, My dad dabbled in drawing and painting. He let us see him try and fail at things. My mom did the same. She was a little more like crafty and that sort of side of creativity, but like both of them tried a lot and got into some things and left some things aside. So we got to see that process. And they were always willing to supply us with the means of creativity. Observation, I don't know. I think that for me that came a little later, and I didn't really start observationally drawing a lot until college. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love how you capture the details and specifics of what you're seeing and observing. I'm really curious, how does kind of the internal emotion of what you're thinking about, what you're processing, come out for you in like what you're choosing to draw, what you're choosing to illustrate, and how does that like help you through different processing different things or something like that?
Yeah. I don't know if this is going to answer exactly, but when I've got a problem to solve visually, there's sort of there are practical things that I've got to do to depict such and such kind of scene, but the thing that I think that when the work is good, when it's doing something worthwhile, what I can bring to it is an emotion, and for me that means digging into the story and really trying to, in the same way that drawing people from life helps me to try to get in their head a little bit and understand what's going on with them better. I bring that same kind of imagination to biblical narratives and just try to think like within the context of this thing and this history and this place, what's going on and what is the emotion? Because the thing that has struck me so much in the biblical story, the further I go into it, is that these are just real people, and so if I can communicate the humanity of the incarnation, especially the real visceral humanness of it, I think that would go a long way to helping people get towards really good news that Jesus has met us in visceral mess that we're in.
Thanks, Stephen.